Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on my channel, and today we're talking about Kyle. Because although we've seen numerous troubling and highly uncomfortable scenes with Kyle at this point,
basic routine. Harder?
Yeah, I want it harder.
If you're a good girl.
nothing could have prepared us for what just happened.
I hope I don't regret this.
Okay, I'm gonna drop the mic.
All right.
Oh no. So let's talk about it. We catch up with Kyle and Annie after Annie met with her yoga friend to talk shit on Kyle, and after Kyle went to the hospital to get an STD test. But instead of catching up with just Kyle and Annie, Annie brings her yoga friend with her to lunch so she can meet creepy Kyle herself. And while the friend seems perfectly willing to be open-minded and see Kyle in the best light, Kyle makes sure to turn the creep on immediately. If you remember, Annie's friend knows all about Kyle and his donation problem. By the way, I know Kyle keeps calling it his donation hobby, but I've decided I'm gonna just refer to it as his problem. The friend knows all about Kyle and his donation problem, and thinks Annie is being too forgiving of Kyle for lying about donating to that girl in Australia.
If Annie has a connection with someone, she's very forgiving.
So when I saw that it was time for Kyle to meet Annie's friend, I thought it was about to go down. I figured they would meet, say hi, chit-chat a bit, until the friend finally decides enough is enough and starts grilling Kyle about his issues. But one thing you learn about Kyle after watching him as much as I have is that you can never truly underestimate just how weird he can be.
Hey!
Hey, how are you? Oh my God, so this is Stephanie.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Me too.
Annie says, "Hey Kyle, meet my friend Stephanie." Kyle says, "Hi Stephanie. Oh wow, you're German too."
Are you from Germany?
Yeah, she's from Germany.
Two Germans.
Don't know how Kyle didn't know that already. And when Steph says, "Yep, I'm German," Kyle goes, "Oh wow, did I ever tell you that I have a German kid too?"
Did I tell you I actually have a German kid? I think he's like 6 now.
Whoa, wow, what a coincidence. We have so much in common. You're a German woman, and I've made a German woman pregnant before. Isn't that amazing? Wow, that's like so relatable. Don't you feel so much closer to me now that you know that information? Not only does Kyle immediately bring up the most uncomfortable topic they could talk about with someone he just met, I think it's also pretty weird that Kyle would say all this to a German woman. I think we can agree that it's already pretty weird to try to use this as a way to relate to someone, that you have some offspring similar to their genetics. But I feel like saying that to a woman in particular, like, oh, you know how you can get pregnant if you take someone's sperm? Well, someone just like you took my sperm and had a kid. You know what I mean? It's like he's putting the idea that someone like her had a kid, like, with it. Anyway, Kyle, recognizing how uncomfortable everyone just got, realizes how weird the whole having a German kid thing might sound out of context. And in an attempt to clarify that he's not some wacky weirdo that has kids all over the place, Kyle says that he's a wacky weirdo that has kids all over the place.
Does she know I get people pregnant? Like I do that? I'm assuming you know that.
I know that,
You know,
yeah.
of course you know.
I get people pregnant. I just do that. I don't think I'll ever not get weirded out when someone talks about impregnating so facetiously. Was that the first time I used facetiously, right? There's just something deeply weird about how upbeat and positive he is about this serious issue. And apparently, Steph thought so too, and points out how odd it is that Kyle seems so happy about it.
I
You
know
know,
that,
you know,
yeah.
of course you know.
And I see your smile on your face when you talk about that.
Yeah, I like it. It's a joy.
Oh, trust us, Kyle. We know that you get a lot of pleasure out of this.
I'm a bit shocked that just within seconds he comes up with a story of him donating rather than just getting to know her a little bit.
As much as I was looking forward to seeing Kyle do his best human being impression, pretending he's not actually an alien tasked with visiting Earth and destroying our population from the inside, it looks like we'll have to wait another day, because instead, they jump straight into talking about Kyle and his sperm problem. Steph asks Kyle how important it is that Kyle keep up with his donation stuff,
How important is it for you, all this meeting with other women
and Kyle says it's pretty important.
and the donating?
Pretty important. Yeah, I'd say it's important.
Steph, trying to determine why it's so important, asks if it's important because he actually gets to interact with a woman.
You always want the interaction with a woman?
Which I think is a great question because obviously she wants to know, but it also kind of implies what we're all thinking, that maybe this is just his only way of getting to interact with a woman, and asks Kyle if he'd ever consider donating to a clinic instead of doing this whole thing freelance.
So a clinic would never be an option?
And interestingly, Kyle rejects fertility clinics because they're too cold and clinical.
Well, it's just too cold and clinical.
Which, I swear, isn't that exactly how he's described his whole practice with women before?
Very professional experience. It was like a procedure, like doctor.
It's not a procedure, you know. Like
Well, it was a little bit.
It's like sex with someone else.
He says that at a clinic, you're just a number on a vial, and that with him, he gets to have a deeper connection with the mothers.
At the end of the day, it's just a number on a vial. But with me, it's on a deeper level because you actually get to connect.
And from what I understand at least, he does have a point. There are some positives with going the third-party independent donation routes, and not everyone who does that kind of thing is a weirdo like Kyle, in my opinion. But then says that because of this deeper connection, he feels like women are counting on him.
And so I do feel kind of obligated in that sense that there is women that are counting on me.
Women are counting on me? I don't know. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that was probably just spliced in and maybe taken out of context. Because I don't really get what he'd be trying to say with that. I don't know, that whole savior thing doesn't really make sense. I don't know. If you have any ideas, then let me know in the comments. Kyle goes back to defending his problem by saying it doesn't hurt anyone.
You know, but the donating doesn't really hurt anyone.
And Steph points out that actually it does hurt Annie.
Donating doesn't really hurt anyone.
Well, her.
Which is true. Kyle needs to think about how his actions affect his partner, but I'd also be remiss to not mention all the other people that his actions may harm. Like anyone who might feel coerced into sleeping with him with the promise of having higher fertility odds, which is not true. Any of his offspring that might develop some disease or become genetic carriers for something that they don't know about because Kyle didn't get the genetic screening testing early enough. And I guess he may be ruining the entire human population by fucking up the gene pool.
Donating doesn't really hurt anyone.
But right as I thought the conversation was getting juicy, the conversation kind of takes a 180. Because instead of Steph calling him out for his delusions or convincing Annie that Kyle's a freak, they start talking about how Kyle is growing as a person and trying to be a better partner.
I'm trying to do better to figure it out. I'm working on myself.
We're not really about to get a Kyle redemption arc, are we? Don't even try it, TLC. You ain't fooling us. Kyle says that they have a spiritual connection by making the international sign of two people having sex. At least that's what it meant to us in middle school. And tries to show Annie that he's working on being more affectionate, like Annie's been wanting from him.
For you.
He's touching you.
I'm trying to be affectionate. That's the thing that I need to work on. You want to be more affectionate.
And Steph, the friend who I thought was supposed to be calling Kyle out, says, "See, he's touching you, Annie."
He's touching you.
In what I thought would be a, it's touching you, Annie, gross, run kind of way. The friend actually sounds like she's encouraging Annie. Like, see, Annie, he's trying to be more affectionate. How nice.
Did you hear that? You said he can do it.
Yeah.
What are you doing, Steph? Aren't you supposed to be looking out for your girl here? Sheesh, maybe I really am just a hater. By the way, I know I can be pretty sassy in these videos, and that I've been harsher towards Kyle than basically everyone else I've ever been on my channel. But I hope it's clear that if Kyle was just a character on the TV show, then I wouldn't be so harsh. Because at the end of the day, 90 Day Fiance is a TV show. It is subject to editing and the producers misrepresenting or kind of fabricating some things for their own narrative. And longtime viewers know that I'm usually pretty good about clarifying that, yeah, maybe it seems this way, but really we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes or what's really true. But unfortunately with Kyle, it's not that easy. Because Kyle's been notorious in the sperm donation world for years at this point, with some pretty serious allegations against him in that time. So because of that, it's more difficult for me as a content creator to try to keep the same kind of lighthearted, benefit of the doubt attitude that I tried to extend to other people on the show. And I think in the future, I would like to do a better job with my platform of being more clear about when I'm talking about Kyle, the person on a edited TV show, and Kyle, the actual real life person with some pretty serious allegations around him. So when you hear my sass and jabs that I make at Kyle, just know that I wouldn't go nearly as hard on him with the name calling and the making fun of him if it wasn't already for the other allegations against him in real life. So anyway, Steph asks Kyle what he wants going forward out of the relationship, and Kyle says he wants to keep working on the relationship and building the love.
How do you want to continue with Ania?
Doing this, building on this love and affection.
Oh my God.
And then we get this monologue from Kyle about how he's a changed man.
I spend a lot of time thinking, and I realized that donating, people just need me for one reason, and that's to make it a baby. Whereas Annie needs me for a relationship. And I think that's pretty meaningful to me.
I mean, I'm sure he probably just means that, he's new to this and it's a little exciting. But it sure does kind of sound like an alien trying to learn what human emotions are. My duty is procreation, but this human demands love. Does not compute. The three of them talk about how great this relationship is.
What I see in you two is that
Spark.
you have a little connection.
I think we have a great relationship.
Steph tells us that she likes Kyle.
Kyle seems to me like a very warm person. I think that the sperm donation, that's important to Kyle, but seems to me that he's willing to change.
And before this nauseating and disappointing meeting comes to an end, Kyle makes sure to end the positivity with some more uncomfortable sex talk.
Sexy German wifey. Are we a sexy couple?
Yeah, you are.
And Annie walks away, feeling like she's been looking at this whole thing the wrong way.
Maybe I have been thinking of my relationship with Kyle from the wrong perspective. Maybe I'm not wasting my time. Maybe there is still something good coming out of this.
Before ending her speech with some eerie foreshadowing.
Kyle wants to work on our relationship, and that makes me more hopeful and open. I just hope he doesn't end up hurting me.
Everyone goes home after the meetup, and while Steph goes back to wherever she came from, Annie goes back home with Kyle to visit Kyle's apartment in Malta for the first time.
Let's see your place.
Yes, you've never been here yet.
Kyle's been in Malta for just over a week at this point, and Annie hasn't seen the place yet. Kyle shows her around, and it quickly becomes clear to Annie that, yeah, Kyle's definitely not had a serious relationship before. There's empty water bottles everywhere, his clothes are thrown into a clump in the closet, and worst of all, he puts his trash bin on the table?
What is this one?
That's the trash.
Why is it on your... You didn't put it out.
I'll put it over here.
Honestly, the apartment really isn't that bad, but the trash on the table, there's no way that's real, right? Like, that must have been the producer's idea to do and make him look worse, right?
It's very clear that he never had a serious girlfriend in his life, telling him to keep your apartment tidy when you get a visit from a woman.
Ladies, you can find a man that cleans up after himself. And fellas, let's keep our rooms clean. It's 2024, and we out here taking care of ourselves. After spending a few minutes in such a romantic setting, the two of them get more comfortable and head to the couch for some very awkward cuddling.
Come here. I want to make you comfortable. Let me get closer to you. Let me move these pillows.
This is only gonna get worse, by the way. As they get to cuddling, Annie tells us that she thinks it's so rare to find a real connection and love, and she thinks she found it with Kyle.
It is so difficult to find someone you can truly connect and love, and I believe I found that in Kyle.
And totally throws her friend under the bus by saying it was because of Steph that she started to trust that their connection is all that matters.
And Steph made me thinking that our connection is all that matters.
Which might have been a romantic, love conquers all kind of message if it wasn't about Kyle.
Let me get closer to you. Let me move these pillows.
Okay, but not too close.
Kyle tries cuddling with her, but it's not very comfortable. And then they do the cuddling equivalent of when you try to get out of someone's way on the sidewalk, but they move into your way, and then you're both like, oh, haha, oops, so awkward.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry.
And because Kyle's never had any genuine female interaction in his whole life,
This moment is so much different than when women normally come to my place for donation because it's very emotional or like being a little cutesy stuff. It's
merely touching a woman that he's not about to clinically impregnate,
I don't think I've ever experienced something like this before. So I'm in uncharted territory right now.
makes him feel like the two of them are an old married couple.
Right now I feel like a real couple. I feel like a real married couple. It feels like real. It's like magical.
But before things go any further, Annie wants to know, seriously, why didn't you have any other real relationships? And what Kyle says is very interesting. He says he tried finding a relationship for years, but couldn't find anyone that liked him.
I did put an effort into finding a relationship for years, but like it was hard to find someone that actually liked me. Like really? I know it's hard to believe, but like
What? Nobody liked Kyle? Hello, Ripley's. You're not gonna believe it.
I just couldn't find someone.
You were like 22.
I was 22.
And hey, I get that. I'm in my late 20s now, but when I was in my early 20s, it felt like nobody my age wanted a serious relationship. And I don't think it was until I was around my mid-20s and told Tinder to not show me anyone who was even a day younger than me that I eventually found people like me who were more interested in long-term serious relationships. So I just wanted to say that, teasing Kyle aside, and assuming you even believe what Kyle is saying right now, if you are in that age demographic where you feel like no one around you cares about having a serious relationship and you do, then take your time. It does get better. But if everyone is saying they don't like you, like what Kyle is claiming here, then you might want to go to therapy, because the problem might be with you. Anyway, back to Kyle. What really surprises me is what he says next.
To me, it was just fear of not having kids and stuff. You know, some people get like 16, they never have kids and they regret it.
Which, if you didn't watch my last video on Kyle, may not really jump out to you at all. But if you did watch my last video, you'll recognize that this explanation he gives here is almost exactly the same explanation he gave in the podcast he did almost 5 years ago.
It's like, I think, a regret kind of thing. Like, let's say I didn't do this and I just grew old and I'm like 60. I'm like, oh, I never had any kids. I think it has a lot to do with that.
He wasn't a relationship kind of person, still wanted kids, and didn't want to grow up and be alone at 60. After he says that in the episode, Annie explains in a one-on-one that this helps her understand Kyle better.
That he had a couple of bad experiences that made like a hole inside, maybe low self-esteem. Maybe another woman doesn't want to have a relationship with me, but these women, at least they want a baby with me.
And at least using Kyle as a jumping off point, I don't know about Kyle specifically, but I can imagine a scenario where someone like Kyle, who maybe grew up as the ugly duckling of the family. Remember, he claims that his family is full of a bunch of high-performing smarties, that dad's a lawyer, nuclear physicist, and his identical twin brother is some super smart PhD that works for the Department of Defense. I could imagine if he felt a lot of comparisons to his high-achieving brother, not as successful or smart, and then maybe he also grows up as the social weirdo in class and in school. Maybe he's just socially awkward, maybe he's somewhere on the autism spectrum, I don't know. Whatever it is, I could imagine that those circumstances may then produce a 20-year-old man that feels like the failure, feels like the loser of the family, and like he may be doomed to be forever alone, which we can have empathy for. That would suck to feel like that, and wouldn't necessarily be the Kyle in this situation's fault. But then faced with those feelings, maybe someone could find a loophole in the system. If he were to donate sperm, sure, he doesn't have actual children that he has an actual relationship with, but from a biological, serotonin system, hierarchical perspective, he might then feel like he's valued enough to procreate with, and that might feel very validating. See, I'm not a total loser that nobody likes or wants to be with. People want to procreate with me. My sperm, and therefore my genetics, are valued. It's not me that's the problem. Maybe I'm just not a relationship kind of person.
Some people are relationship type of people, and others, I'm one of those people that I'm just not a relationship type of person.
And maybe, after all the years donating, all the positive reinforcement of more women choosing his sperm over other people's sperm, him succeeding in the procreation, them sending him photos, every little bit strokes his ego.
In denial of your narcissism, because whether you like it or not, you're stroking your ego every time you have a child, or you can say you've done this.
And over time, maybe this person could come to believe that they're not just not a loser, but they're actually kind of amazing, a savior, like Superman.
Some of them have referred to me as like a modern day savior. In some ways, I'm kind of like Superman, Clark Kent. I got my day job, and at night I put on my cape and become I'm like a superhero.
And maybe over time, all these experiences and affirmations get to their head. And with newfound confidence and power, the bullied kid becomes the bully. wanting to now get back at society, and possibly women in particular have rejected him his whole life, believing that because he's so amazing and not at all a loser, how dare you ever refer to me that way?
Hi.
Why? I don't know. It's different for every woman.
You are short.
What?
You are short.
What? No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
I'm tall.
You are a little awkward.
No, I'm not awkward. But these are just features,
That's the bullied kid becomes entitled and starts relishing in putting other people down as a sort of karmic payback.
You have to earn it. There's points. We do a point system. If you're a good girl, you have to earn it. You're so sexy when you get kind of upset.
Refuses to take any accountability.
I never reject the idea of do genetic testing. The thing is, women feel comfortable with me to not do genetic testing.
And only cares for himself. Again, that's a lot of speculation and theorizing, and these are totally just my own thoughts and opinions. Take what I say with a grain of salt. I'm just some guy on YouTube, I'm not a professional. But I am interested in hearing what you guys think about all that, so let me know in the comments below. Anyway, back to the show. The show is presenting everything, not in the comic book villain way that I just did, but by suggesting Kyle is just lonely and misunderstood. And he gets that, and the two of them are actually getting along great. So great, in fact, that she and Kyle agreed to go hang out in the bedroom. The two of them moved to the bedroom.
But I'm feeling like everything is so natural between him and me.
Kyle closes the curtains.
Bye-bye.
They turn off the lights.
I feel my heart is telling me to stay the night.
And Annie hopes that she's not about to regret what happens next.
I hope I don't regret this.
Okay, I'm gonna turn off the light.
All right.
Next time.
The show heavily implies that they just had sex here. And while normally I would chalk that up as to just editing, who really knows? Maybe this is a little bit of clickbait. And of course we don't know, but there were previews in the beginning of the season that also heavily implied that at some point in the season that they do it. And who knows, maybe they didn't, maybe it was only 10% of what happened, or it was this really small, tiny other thing that wasn't actually what they tried painting it out to be. But the show is implying that they did it. And as a viewer, that idea fills me with dread and disgust. So, in a desperate attempt to cope with that disgust, I'm going to go back to convincing myself that this entire plot and storyline with them is entirely fake, and I'm not actually seeing what I'm seeing. And I suggest that you do the same. Thanks everyone for watching. That's all I got for today's video. Let me know what you thought about Kyle and Annie in the comments down below. Make sure to hit that join button if you'd like to see any of this content earlier, or get your name in the credits, or even have me shout you out. A big thank you to all of you channel members, especially to Nancy Jones for being a producer of this channel. And until next time, see you later.